You are listening to The Ben Keech Show, where every day the objective is simple. Ben will never stop fighting the fight and lighting the light on topics that affect you every day.
Welcome everyone to the Ben Keech Show. My name is, it should be Ben, otherwise the show wouldn't make sense. I'm glad you guys are joining today and that you're maybe listening in your car or maybe you're like just bored and watching YouTube videos. Regardless, I'm glad you're here. We are here today with a special guest and her name is Natalie Burton. Natalie has written a book that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the book, we're going to talk about her, we're going to talk about things that are interesting to both of us. So thank you for joining. I don't know, it could be a YouTube thing for you, maybe Spotify, Apple. You can subscribe, you can give us comments. All of Natalie's information is going to be in the show notes. We welcome those follows on Instagram, all those things, because somehow when that happens, good things happen after that. And we appreciate that. That's why we're doing this. So anyway, Natalie, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to finally meet you in person.
I feel the same way. And I need to first figure out a few things about you. So your book, it's a journey of love and discovery. That seems like a whole, so tell me, what happened to you before to get you to want to write about love and discovering cool things? How did this all happen for you?
Sure. So I was married for 23 years.
Okay.
And I've lived in Leawood for 30 years, raised my boys in the area.
Okay.
And it was a little bit of a hard divorce process. And leading up to the divorce, obviously there's reasons people get divorced. You don't just throw those papers out for any reason.
Right.
When I filed, I literally got on a plane about a week later and went to Jupiter, Florida, to a healing/recovery place.
Okay.
And it was something that I knew I needed to do. I was very broken. I went through mental trauma, mental abuse, PTSD, and I was about 15 pounds lighter, not eating, not sleeping, not taking care of myself. So I just got on a plane. I took my golf clubs. That's my big hobby. I called them. I interviewed a lot of places and I said, hey, can I play golf there? And they're like, yes, you can. So took a lot of bags because I didn't really know when I was going to come home.
Right.
So I wasn't going to come home until I got better.
Okay.
So where I went is called Futures in Jupiter, Florida, and there I started my journey. And
how did you find or choose this place? Looking at the different options,
Sure.
What drove you to this place?
So I did some research. I looked at places all over the country, and I did phone interviews with about 6 places.
Okay.
And this place literally made me start crying.
Really?
I just was like, they're gonna take care of me. They're gonna help me. I'm gonna get better, and it just clicked. So that's why I chose them.
What would you say going into when you say get better? What was the did you know what needed to get better, or were you just knowing something had to happen? What was your understanding of that then?
Yeah, sure. I was a mess. I mean, think about when you don't sleep. Probably for 7 years, and on a consistent basis, that wears you down.
Right.
And you don't eat properly, and your body isn't fueled, and you're still trying to be a mom, a wife, volunteer. I wasn't working at the time. I was a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
And I just, I just wasn't mentally healthy, and I knew I needed to step away from Leawood, Kansas.
Right.
And exit and get away from all the toxic people in my life and work on myself. And I had never put myself first as a mom, as a wife. I always was, you got your little totem pole, and it was always, the boys. I have 2 boys and then my husband at the time. And I just never knew how to put myself first. And there I learned how to do it. And it's changed my life.
What was the light bulb moment, the aha moment of how you need to, because we get ingrained in so many habits on how we do life and how we, we do these things for our kids, and what was the change? What was the thing that was how how are you going to do life different from going down to Jupiter?
Do you
Look at how are you going to look at your life different in terms of putting yourself first?
Well, that was really challenging for me because I had never done that before. So it took a lot of confidence building and just me letting things out, like things that had been bottled up in me as a child. I went through some trauma as a child and things that I never properly healed from. I lost my mom, which was really difficult. And
At what age?
Goodness gracious, I was,
I'm assuming you're talking about that she passed away.
She passed away of cancer. So I'm trying to think, my younger son was in kindergarten.
Okay.
He's now 19.
Okay.
So it's been about 13 years ago.
So she was around to see the
Yeah,
kids at
little,
the beginning of
yeah.
your adult life.
Yes, and she was very active in their lives. So it was very traumatic for my sons, especially my younger son.
Right.
So so I had, when I checked in there, I had an apartment, and I was on an executive floor where there was 15 apartments, or I don't know if they were apartments, but they were nice, spacious rooms.
Yeah.
And we just dove right in, and like people were coming in left and right. It was like a doctor, a nutritionist, a personal trainer, a psychiatrist, a therapist. I mean, I was just like, okay.
These are all the different people that are coming to talk to you.
All like in that first day. I was
Gotcha.
like, okay, like this is gonna be good. And I started eating food, like 3 meals a day.
Yeah,
that was
novel
that was
concept,
important.
Yeah.
I started, they went through. I have a really good doctor in Leawood that had me on some really good medication. And some of my family members were like, you got this kooky doctor in Leawood. Well, actually, she's spot on, because I was with the best doctors in the country down there, and they're like, yep, you've got the right things that you need to be on.
Right.
So I felt, and she's still very active in my life. I see her about every 6 weeks.
Okay.
So I was told I was crazy by my ex-husband, and sometimes my father.
I think you're the first person who an ex-husband has ever called their ex-wife crazy. I know I've never called my ex-wife crazy. I don't want to lie. No, she's not crazy. I shouldn't say that on air.
But that, hearing that over and over and over really beats you down. And when you're told you're crazy, you're told you're not smart, you're told your legs are too big, your lips are too small. I mean, I had literally no confidence. And
but you never mentioned anything about, I'm not even going to say that on air, about, sorry, the size things, the small, the big, and turning it back. I shouldn't go. That's very inappropriate. I'm sorry. Anyway,
okay.
there are things that we can say back, but we shouldn't do that. We should be the better person.
Right. The bigger person.
Right.
So there, I stayed for a month. I literally I paid for 5 days. I was like, I'm going to go for 5 days. I'm going to get assessed, and I'm going to go home. Well, I didn't want to go home. And I didn't even want to go home after a month. So I ended up staying an additional week in a hotel to kind of regroup from coming out, and just to kind of spend some, like, Jupiter's like super special. I go back there a lot. And, but that's where, so to kind of tell you where the book came from.
Yeah.
I met my therapist. So I had a lot of therapists, but one of the therapists was a family therapist where we spoke to the boys who were back here in Leawood. And I was just like, this lady is cool. Like, she had kids the same age. She was really loud, really outgoing, and I just really thought she was funny, and I connected with her.
Right.
So the hard thing when I left after those 30 days is, like, I need a therapist in Leawood. Like, I had a lot of therapists here, but they had retired or somebody got sick, and so I'm like, I don't want to go home and start over. Like, this is going so well for me. So nobody in Futures would keep me as a therapy patient because of legality. Like, they didn't have a license in Kansas.
Okay.
So this woman happened to be quitting Futures at the same time I was leaving. She came and met me at my hotel, and she says, I got you. And her name is Liz, and she's amazing. She's still a huge part of my life.
Okay.
So my boys have met her multiple times. She's actually met my dad. I've done a lot of therapy with him as well, and she's on speed dial. Like, I have an issue that comes up. I mean, there's an issue in my life.
I have a good friend who's named Liz, who's a therapist in Leawood, FYI.
Well, this she's in Florida.
Oh.
So she
Obviously, I'm not listening very well.
That's okay. So we do therapy over Zoom, or it's mostly FaceTime.
Okay.
So, but she's on speed dial. I mean, if it's just a little thing, you know, like, oh, I got this text from da 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 da,
Right.
you know, and I need a little advice, and it's just she'll immediately like, I'll get back to you in an hour. I'm in a session, and then if I need to book a session, we book. But usually we can handle it pretty quickly. Usually it's like, okay, this is not a big deal. This is a tomorrow problem, not a today problem, or
Right.
something like that. So anyway, she came to me and said, when I was in this hotel in Jupiter, I really think you should start journaling and consider writing a book about your story. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm not a writer. Like,
Right.
I'm a businesswoman, and that was not something I was super interested in.
Right.
But I took her advice and started journaling, and it just started, kind of going. And then she introduced me to a publicist who also lives in the Jupiter area that wanted to pick up my story. So so I started journaling like crazy, and started then going on Google Docs and just pounding out my story.
Right.
And it was going to be nonfiction. And then when I signed on with Amazon, which I was telling you was just this May, we then turned it into fiction for multiple reasons. We thought it would sell better, and it was the nonfiction is very personal.
Right.
This is still very personal. But I will say it's loosely based on my story, so it's left up to the reader to decide what's real and what's not real. So that's kind of how it all happened, and it's a big book, and but I love the cover, so Amazon did all this for me, and I would highly recommend. They were awesome to work with.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of how it all came about.
So if I were to take the first part of it, so Journey of Love and Discovery is the name of the book. So I take a journey of love. So how would you describe, like, whether it's, part of the book or elements of it are part of the book, like, how would you describe your journey of love? Like, what does that look like?
So love is an interesting word, right? You're born into this world with parents, and I had very loving parents, but I also had very strict parents, and there was never a lot of like hugging and kissing. Not like that you kiss but you know what I mean. Like, stuff. But I'm a very sensual person and a hugger. Like, you meet me off the street, I'm probably gonna give you a hug.
Right.
Then I'm probably gonna say love ya.
Right.
So I didn't have a lot of that growing up. And I had a very serious boyfriend all through high school, which I don't even think I loved him, but I was so young.
Yeah.
Then I went straight to college, had a very serious boyfriend, got out of college, and then met my ex-husband. So I didn't have a whole lot of chance to date enough.
Right.
But love, I mean, I think the biggest fear of me filing for divorce and then kind of going through the process is I was really angry at love, this like, why did this happen to me? Like, I didn't sign up for this.
Right.
So
I know.
You understand. You're divorced, and but what I can say is I know I can love again, and it gives me goosebumps because I just didn't have any faith for a long time that I could actually fall in love. Like, I have my children, you have your children.
Right.
I love them to pieces. And we have a very different relationship than how I was raised, and of course, it's different generations.
Right.
But love is very special, and I don't think it happens, especially in finding a partner. I think it's challenging to find that. Find that again.
Why is that challenging after your first marriage, X amount of years? Why is it tricky or difficult to find that person?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in our next podcast a little bit too, but for me, I had no confidence. So I'm like, who's going to want me?
Gotcha.
Who wants me? Like,
right.
I didn't think I was pretty. I didn't think I had a good figure, even though I work out every day and try to watch what I eat, and I just didn't have any confidence. So I didn't know who would want to love me.
Right.
So, but I do know it can happen, and it feels good, but it also is very scary because I'm very guarded because I don't trust a lot of men.
Yeah.
I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
Right.
But it's hard because when you've been duped and everything you've worked for and built for in a family falls apart, it's hard.
Duped is a good word too, because it feels like that, because you feel like you're going in with a particular idea of how it's going to end and what I'm going to invest into it, and I'm serious, and I'm into this, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is my life. And I mean, I never in a million years would have thought I was going to get a divorce, like, ever.
How long were you married?
19 years.
19, okay.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah. And so this whole, like, the last 5.5 years of me not being married has been, I mean, it's been amazing, but I never would have predicted any of it.
Right, because all you do is work to get your kids to elementary school, then to middle school, then to high school, and then to college, and then you start thinking, oh, we're going to be empty nesters and retired, and then all of a sudden you're like, psh, it's gone.
Yeah. Right.
It's gone.
Right.
Which is a bit of a reality check, right?
And then you're basically in communication with people who've all had an element of that story.
Right.
And then how you rebuild that and what people, like, it's just, it's, we all have our different, we all have the stuff that we wrestle with all of that. And
I think, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think everybody that's gone through divorce, everybody's is different. And some people are like, well, why was yours so different that you wrote a book? Well, I really did it to heal. So that's why I did it. But I think we all have something in common, and I have worked so hard to make new friendships since being divorced.
Yeah.
To find people that have been through what I've been through. Because at some point, in some element of divorce, we all have similarities in what we've been through. Whether you're the man or the woman or the narcissist or not the narcissist, or you're the crazy one or the whatever you are. I'm just, those are big words, right? But we all have a common thread of we can relate to what it's like to raise kids after divorce, and financially, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Divorce can be a little bit financially devastating, but it's also empowering. So, I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, so I had to rebuild myself, and that has it was daunting in the beginning, but now it's like the best thing that happened to me.
And I think the financial side took a definite hit for me, but the part that's most, like, empowering was that I can choose my life. I have all, like, and honestly, friendships are ultimately the most important, because whether I get married again, I don't know whether that happens. Like, my life isn't lived for if that happens. My life is more about the people that I connect with, the friendships that I form, and that's just more important to me, because that's controllable. I can't control whether I'm the rest. Right. So whatever happens.
Right. And I try to just live in the moment, which I was a planner and a futuristic person. And it's funny when I date people, they're like, are you spontaneous? And I was not spontaneous as a married woman. I was like, everything's got to be scheduled, and we're going to eat at this time, and we're going to eat chicken on Monday and Tuesday's taco, Right. And now I don't care. And like, if somebody asks me to get on a plane tomorrow, I'm probably going to go. Yeah. I'm probably going to find a way to go.
There's so many things that I even think of, like the early parenting days. There's so many things that seem so important, because I want to be the good dad. I want to do this right. I want to do this different than how I experienced it. And I have ideas about that. And not that those ideas are bad, but the point is that, like, now when you see, like, the things in life that are really important, like, there are things that are more important. There are things that matter that I didn't always grapple with when I was raising little kids. But
I think that one, like, takeaway that everybody can relate to, especially you probably will too. I was telling you, I'd always put myself kind of at the bottom of the totem pole, and now I don't. And I don't care. Like, I don't care if I love my sons and they're my life, but if it's something I want to do and it might conflict with something, I'm gonna do it.
Right.
And what I learned through therapy is the analogy of you're on a plane, and when you're with your little kids and the oxygen mask falls down, and you put it on me, and then I put it on them. And so that's what I do. That's how I live my life now. It probably irritates some people. I don't care. It's for me and my mental health and my well-being, and I'm just so happy that I've learned how to live that way now.
I've got one more question for you about your book, and
Sure.
I have one thing, like the airplane analogy is a good one, because we are taught and trained to everything that we do is kid first.
Right.
Everything.
Right.
Mom, dad, maybe especially moms, we're always taught it's kid, which is good. In my opinion, if you actually talk to the kids and you have conversations when they're in high school, whatever, as long as they're not so self-absorbed because you've screwed them up so much, they want you to think that way.
Right.
They want you to, they love you. They want you to take care of they want you to be happy.
Yes.
They're in charge of their own happiness and their own life and what they want to do. They don't need you to hover in a helicopter above their every move and whatever they do to make sure everything's perfect. They're capable of doing
Right.
that. And they want you to think like that.
And they don't want us to control them. And
No.
And
No.
it's like they need to spread their wings. And our job as parents is they need to be independent adults.
Yes.
So.
And
I
they want to be
totally
that. And they want to
understand.
be that
Right.
just as much.
Right.
Unless they're like
They don't need mommy.
Unless they're that kind
telling
of
them
kid,
what to do.
Video games are really cool, their basement's really lush, and they love potato chips that their mommy buys them every day. Unless they're that kind of kid, they're not listening to this though, because there's way more interesting like Fortnite podcasts that they can listen to for that.
Right.
One last question about the book. So it's a super big accomplishment. You know how many people say they want to write a book? Most people don't.
Right.
A lot of people say it. Who does it? So I just think that's amazing that you've done this. So first of all, like, respect and congratulations for doing that, because it's nobody can take this away. No matter if like one person buys it or a million people. Like,
That's what I tell myself. Right.
You did it.
Right. I'm like, I don't really care. You know.
I think that's amazing. So what would be like something to that you're most proud about, the element that came from this? Like, people are gonna read this. What do you want them to like? I hope they take away this from this book. What would you say?
You know, I just want people to know that life is not perfect. And when I was married, I think I portrayed my life as perfect on social media, because that's really easy to do, right? And it wasn't perfect. And I look back and I'm like, what was I doing? You know, but that's just what I thought was the right thing to do.
Right.
So I think it's just being real, and I want people to know life isn't perfect. Divorce does happen. There are many challenges. You can fall down. I've fallen down, let's say in the last 10 years, I've fallen down 100 times, maybe more.
Right.
But you can stand back up, and you will be okay. And therapy is amazing, and your mental health is so important, and it's such a big thing now, mental health, and you need to take care of yourself. And so I just love to meet people that want to talk about, you know, what happened to them and like what happened to me, and you know, just heal together, network together, and just enjoy life, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Right.
Folks, Natalie Burton, their book, I can show you, but I don't know how, whatever, A Journey of Love and Discovery. All of this is going to be on the show notes. Follow her, ask her questions, tell her what you thought about this particular podcast. I'm sure she would appreciate it, as long as you're relatively normal and not her ex. Then maybe just keep you don't really need to do that. That she already knows. It's okay. You guys already had your time. It's fine. I appreciate. I don't know the guy. I'm sure whatever. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I can't wait for next time, Natalie. Thank you. This is great.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time.
You bet.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Let's keep the conversation going. You can reach out on Ben's website, www.benkeechshow.com, or on social media to chat. And please remember to subscribe so that you never miss an episode.